Imagine surviving an atomic bomb, the heat, the shock wave, the city literally turning to dust around you. Now imagine waking up the next morning, getting on a train, and walking straight into another one. This isn't a movie script. This is the real life of Tsutomu Yamaguchi. The year is 1945. The world was still locked in World War II. Yamaguchi is a 29-year-old engineer working for Mitsubishi. He spent the last few months on a business trip in Hiroshima, designing oil tankers. By early August, the job is finally done. He's packed his bags, got his travel papers, said goodbye to his co-workers, and is ready to go home to his wife and newborn son in Nagasaki. August 6th was supposed to be his last day in Hiroshima. Instead, it became the most important day of his life. At 8:15 in the morning, he's walking toward the shipyard for one last errand. The sky was clear. Then he hears a lone plane high above the city, the B-29 bomber Enola Gay. Moments later, the world turned white. A flash brighter than the sun filled the sky. Yamaguchi himself described the moment as a lightning of a magnesium flare, a light so intense it didn't just brighten the world, it erased it. The bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, had detonated over Hiroshima. To understand how insane it is that he survived this, you have to understand what Little Boy actually was. Inside the bomb was something deceptively simple, a mechanism that worked like a gun. One piece of uranium was fired into another. The moment they collided, they reached what's called critical mass. And in that instant, everything spiraled out of control. In less than a second, atoms began splitting in a chain reaction, releasing more energy than anyone had ever seen. The crazy part? All that destruction, the leveled buildings, the 100,000 lives, the fireball hotter than the sun, came from an amount of matter that weighed less than a paperclip. Surviving within a couple of miles of ground zero shouldn't just be unlikely, it should be impossible. The shock wave didn't just knock him down, it sucked him off the ground and spun him through the air before slamming him into a field. The heat burned his skin and his eardrums ruptured. But when the dust settled in a city that essentially no longer existed, he stood up. Now ask yourself, what do you do when the apocalypse drops on your Tuesday morning commute? You survive. That night, Yamaguchi crawled through a waking nightmare. He didn't just walk through ash, he walked through a city that had been liquefied. The air smelled of ozone and roasted metal. Against all logic, the train lines just outside the blast zone were somehow still humming, a mechanical heartbeat in a dead city. The next morning, he boarded a train to Nagasaki. But this wasn't a commute, it was a ghost train. Picture this, a metal box packed shoulder to shoulder with people who no longer looked human. Many were severely burned, barely able to move or speak. No one cried, no one screamed. The train was silent, just the sound of wheels against the tracks and the quiet breathing of survivors. Yamaguchi sat there, his own skin charred, staring into the void as the train rolled through the ruins of his world. He thought he was heading toward safety. He thought he was leaving the nightmare behind. But he wasn't just bringing himself home, he was bringing the invisible fire with him. It's August 9th, 3 days after the world ended. Now, if you survived a nuclear blast, were badly injured and covered in bandages, you'd take the year off, right? Not Tsutomu. He was an engineer. He had a job to do. He walks into his office in Nagasaki, a city that feels safe, and stands in front of his boss. He's a walking ghost, trying to explain the impossible. He tells him, "Boss, one single bomb wiped out the entire city of Hiroshima." His boss doesn't just doubt him, he laughs. He tells Yamaguchi he's lost his mind. He says, and this is documented, "You're an engineer. How can one scale-sized bomb destroy a whole city? It's physically impossible." And right at that exact second, as the word impossible hangs in the air, the windows turn into sheets of white. That same blinding inside your school light fills the room. For the second time in 3 days, the sun had come to Earth. The boss's argument wasn't just proven wrong, it was vaporized. For the second time in 3 days, Tsutomu Yamaguchi is standing in the blast radius of an atomic weapon. Fat Man had just detonated over Nagasaki. It was even more powerful than the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. As the office windows shattered and the walls groaned, a reinforced stairwell became his only sanctuary. When he finally stumbled back out into the daylight, the nightmare had followed him home. The skyline wasn't just burning, it was collapsing. It was Hiroshima all over again. But this time, his family was in the fire. Yamaguchi didn't just run. He sprinted through a graveyard of scorched wood and twisted metal, his own bandages unraveling behind him. He reached his neighborhood to find his house, his life, leveled to the ground. He was certain he had lost everything. But then, he saw them. In an unbelievable twist of fate, his wife and infant son were alive. They weren't in the house when the shockwave hit. Why? Because they were out buying burn ointment for the wounds he had brought back from Hiroshima. Surviving the blasts was only the beginning. The invisible fire, radiation, started eating him from the inside out. His hair fell out in clumps, skin began to rot, and for weeks he was trapped in a cycle of high fevers and weakness that should have killed him. But once again, Tsutomu survived. He didn't just survive, he outlasted the very era of the atomic bomb. It took over 60 years, but in 2009, the Japanese government finally gave him a title no other human on Earth holds, Nijyuu Hibakusha, the official double survivor. He lived to be 93 years old, passing away in 2010. Before he went, he left behind a quote that puts his entire life into perspective. Having experienced atomic bombings twice, it is my destiny to talk about it. Most people don't get a second chance at life. Tsutomu Yamaguchi got 2 in the middle of 2 separate apocalypses. Next time you think you're having a bad day or your luck is running thin, remember the man who beat the end of the world twice. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's craziest survival story, hit subscribe for more true stories that feel unreal. I'll see you in the next one.